And I think a lot of people feel like, oh man, but I don't want to have accountability in my life. I want to be able to just do it all alone.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we're social creatures. There's such a thing as people power. You become a part of a group of people who work out, you're more likely to work out. You become a group of people that have a certain value, you're more likely to share that value. So you stack the deck in your favor.
Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Holistic Productivity Podcast. Thank you so much for being here for this episode of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and it's just so great that you are here today because it means that you are interested in achieving your goals and you're actually doing something about that. You know, my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I'm so glad that you are here today taking that step that you need. And look, let me tell you what, you picked a great episode to listen to. We have a fantastic guest here today. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. But first, I want to invite you to join the Holistic Productivity on School. You may not have heard of School before, but it is a growing community of people just like you who are investing in their goals and coming together to share and learn and grow. It's free to join. And there's a lot of great resources there available as well. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, but I would love to have you join the Holistic Productivity on School. Join me there, and we will continue this conversation about achieving your goals to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Okay, I'm going to get right into today's episode. If you want to supercharge your productivity, this is the episode for you. I'm so excited about our guest today. Demir Bentley is an executive productivity coach. He and his wife, Carrie, are the productivity power couple and co-founders of Lifehack Method, and they are the Wall Street Journal best-selling authors of Winning the Week, How to Plan a Successful Week every week. It is a great book. We'll put a link in the show notes. You need to check that out as well. He has worked with executives from Facebook, Google, Uber, Pepsi, all helping them to prevent burnout and create freedom. Now, Demir knows all too well about burnout. Building a successful career on Wall Street, Demir almost worked himself to death, literally. After developing stress-related chronic illness, the doctors gave him little choice. He had to reduce his 80-hour work week if he wanted to regain control of his spiraling health. Today, a decade later, Demir and Carrie, who also ditched a high-level corporate job, they only work a handful of hours each week, helping clients avoid burnout and become the most productive versions of themselves. Demir and Carrie have lived a digital nomad lifestyle, living in Bali, Spain, France, Italy, Singapore, Thailand, Colombia. And Demir, it is so great to connect with you. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording. I loved your book, and I followed some of your stuff online. It's just so great to have you here on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, I want to set the stage for people who haven't read the book. Tell me about your career on Wall Street and what happened to kind of make you step back from that world.
Yeah. So I would say Carrie and I are the classic insecure overachievers archetype,
Yeah.
right? So we learned very young to perform for love and attention.
Yeah.
And we got good at that game. And so we got the A's in school and went to the right colleges, and then both wanted to cut our teeth in challenging environments. And I chose the New York route. And I was very much choosing it for the same, templated reason that everybody goes to New York. I
Right.
wanted to prove that I could sit at the big kids table and play with the best of them.
Yeah.
And I was a firm believer in hustle culture.
Mm.
And if you think about it like a religion, it's not, but the tenets of that religion are a faith that if you outwork the competition, if you just work harder and push yourself harder, it will pay off.
Yeah.
It's going to pay off, and it's going to pay off big. And it didn't for me. I just ran out of runway because after 10 years of living in New York City, neglecting my body, I was at my heaviest 260 pounds, terrible blood work, terrible relationships, drinking, treating my body badly, no deep connections or friendships. And I got to the end of that road and my body just completely gave out. And I won't go into detail for the studio audience because it's too much information. But let me just say it was an ugly, painful, chronic stress-related illness that required 3 surgeries. And even at the end of that road, my doctors were sort of scratching their heads and being like, what is the cause of this? And finally, one of them, we told this story in the book, one of them finally thought to ask me, how many hours a week do you work, actually? And what's funny is that I was living in New York, proud to say, just, I had the busy badge firmly appended to my lapel. I was so proud to tell them that I was working 80 to 100 hours a week consistently, right? And finally, they all came together and said, oh, okay, we think we know what this is. This is salaryman sudden death syndrome, which doesn't really exist that much here in the United States, but is very common in Asia, where you're sitting down so much, your cortisol's so high, you're sleeping so little that your body just sort of says, oh, we're dying. That's what's happening here. We're dying. And it starts to shut different systems down. In my case, my digestive system. So it was it was a funny moment because from that Friday, when I finally got a solid diagnosis, to Monday, what my job was is they said, like, listen, from Friday to Monday, you have to go from working 80 hours a week to 40 hours a week. Otherwise, you need to quit your job. And to me, that was the same as saying that I needed to grow wings and fly to Narnia, right, and play with the elf children. I mean, it was like, how am I going to do this? This is a job I've been consistently doing for the last 5 years and took nothing less than 80 hours a week. And you're telling me somehow that I magically need to just make it happen, starting this Monday at 40 hours a week, cut it in half. And for me, that was just like impossible. And yet that sort of rock in the hard place situation forced me into a place where I did have to figure something out. And that was the first, I say in the book, that's when I did the first real planning session of my life. We can go into why previous plannings really weren't planning. It was more magical thinking sessions. But that was the first real planning session I had in my life. And that next week, I got all of my work done in 40.2 hours. And it, for me, was like almost like I fell out of a religion and came into a new one, right? So the religion of hustle culture was just kill yourself and it'll pay off eventually. And that felt like losing my religion. Like I felt betrayed. I felt lost. And very quickly thereafter, I got sort of baptized into the religion of like, wow, this actually works when you can really do a planning session.
And what is that received like on Wall Street, where that hustle culture is so strong? When you come in the next week and only work 40.2 hours, how do they receive that?
You know what's funny is I thought that I was looking so good to my boss because I was always the first person in and the last one there, and they would come in on the weekends and I'd be there. And I had a boss take me aside and say, dude, there's something wrong with how you're working. You're not supposed to work this much. And so there was a big mismatch between how I thought I was coming across in the world and how I actually was. I thought I was impressing everybody with this like big work hours, like I was showing them my dedication. And they were just looking at me like, what is wrong with this young man that he can't get his work done in a proper amount of time? And so I would say that first transition, getting from 80 to 40, was actually smiled upon. It was like, okay, he's
Yeah.
finally getting it together. I then went on within the next 2-3 months to go from 80 hours of work to 2 hours of work a week. That was a little bit trickier because I still had to sit at my desk and need to figure out what I was going to do with all that time. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that's another story for another day. There's a lot of people who hit that burnout mode, but very few of them go on to reinvent their whole model of work and their lifestyle. What was that like as you were going through that process? And I'm sure we'll get into the specifics of that as we look at winning your week, but talk about the mindset. Is there something that others can recognize in similar moments in themselves?
I use the term religious conversion because often adult behavioral change is the hardest thing to accomplish. And we're
Mm,
often trying to change 5% at a time, 10% at a time. But when you see people who really change as adults, fundamentally something about them changes. Often they hit some kind of rock bottom. They declare bankruptcy on the way that they were working. So they get the humility finally to just say,
yeah,
what I was doing wasn't working. And they open themselves up to change in a very fundamental way, meaning they regenerate their entire identity from the inside out at a cellular level.
yeah,
And you experience them as a completely different person who operates in a completely different way. So for me, that rock bottom of my health crisis, and the health crisis was definitely a rock bottom, but it was also losing the religion of hustle culture. I felt betrayed. I felt like I'd been promised something and it had not been delivered. And
mm,
so it wasn't just the health, it was also just sort of the crumbling of my worldview around how I was supposed to achieve success and be the person I wanted to be in the
yeah,
world. Right about that time was when I had read The 4 Hour Work Week. This
mm,
idea, this controversial idea of like, maybe I can do more with less time.
yeah,
Shout out Tim Ferriss.
yeah,
And that became sort of this new idea that captured my imagination of like, well, maybe it's not about working more. Maybe it's not about hustle culture. Maybe there's a different way to operate in the world. And I just, in that moment, the synthesis of all these things coming to my life was almost like a religious conversion. So
yeah,
I would say for me, it wasn't like I adopted some mantra or mindset. I hit rock bottom
yeah,
and completely gave myself over to a totally different way of living because I knew the old way was completely bankrupt.
yeah, yeah.
And can I pause and I just want to pause on that and say a lot of my clients are close to rock bottom when they come to work with me
Mm,
and they're just hanging on with bloody fingernails. And I say, like, you know what? Actually, go ahead and let go of that last branch.
yeah,
Let go. Because when you hit rock bottom, it's a powerful force in your life.
yeah,
That moment when you finally hit that complete rock bottom is the moment you look in the mirror and say, I won't live like this anymore. I
yeah,
refuse to live like this anymore. And my need for change is greater than my ego or holding on or the past decisions that I made and was trying to defend it. I'm willing to declare bankruptcy on the thing that's not working, and I'm willing to go all in on something new. Rock bottom is a very painful, but also very beautiful and powerful space. And so I often encourage people like, you're holding yourself back from rock bottom because you think something bad is going to happen there. Actually, rock bottom is often the beginning of something very new and very fertile.
yeah, yeah. We hold on to that's not working, but we're holding ourselves back from something that can work in the future. Yeah,
Yeah. And breaking what isn't working, allowing it to finally break is often the necessary first step to creating that new thing.
yeah, yeah. Wow, that is great advice. Let's jump forward because you guys have been living this digital nomad lifestyle, and again, very much in that Tim Ferriss vein, right? Just living those retirement years kind of early, rather than later in life. What was that life like? Is it as alluring and glamorized as it sounds? I'm sure there comes some challenges with that. What are some of those challenges that you faced in choosing location independence?
I would say, and again, results may vary. We very much lived the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss
Yeah.
lifestyle. We went for it and it was as good as it was advertised.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely lovely. And you mentioned a lot of the countries that we lived in. It was me and my wife. We didn't have kids at the time, traveling all over the world. We were geo arbitraging, meaning we were making money in US dollars, but spending it in lower cost currencies. So
Yep.
we were saving more, even as we were enjoying our life more. I mean, honestly, no complaints. The only thing that happened was that we got a little bit bored of it. And I know somebody out there is probably shaking their fist at me right now, like, how dare you? But after, 8 years of being on the road and traveling and seeing countries, there really is only so much of that until you want something different. So I don't know if you've read this book called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. Thanks, David
Mm,
Brooks. It really talks about the first mountain in life is that selfish mountain of like, I want freedom, I want optionality, I want money, I want possessions. And the second mountain is about contribution. It's about connection. It's about caring. So Carrie and I climbed our first mountain together and loved it. And I highly recommend that everybody does it for themselves.
yeah.
But then we decided we wanted to have a family and wanted to anchor into community and take that journey. And so now we are in the process of climbing our second mountain. We've got 3 kids. We live in an intentional community now in Georgia, still traveling quite a bit, but now
Yeah.
we're rooted down in an intentional community. And our adventure that we're on right now is an adventure inward into community contribution through our kids and our community. So
Yeah.
that's sort of where we're at right now. And in some ways, from the outside, you might look in and say, "Oh, well, you took a step back," and that's true. I've got less freedom than I had before, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually an adventure forward because we're taking this new journey of responsibility, children, community. We've bought a
Yeah.
big house. We haven't owned a house forever. So it's a fun new challenge. And I see this a lot with my clients where when they get exactly what they wanted in their vision board, they say, "This was great. Now I want to take on a new challenge
Yeah.
that's flavored completely differently."
Well, I think those of us that are driven to do more and have those big goals, that's often the case because once we achieve something, it's, you want to achieve more. I've certainly enjoyed that in my fundraising career, right? You keep raising more money every year and challenging yourself to do that. You talked about freedom, and in the book you mentioned that there are 4 freedoms. Talk a little bit about that because I think it's great to hear how those are interconnected.
Well, there's a lot of these words in society that we sort of package a lot of things into one word, and sometimes it's actually good to unpack that a little bit.
Mm,
There's really not just one type of freedom. I think in my mind, there's 4 that are relevant to productivity. One is just time freedom, right? Being able to get your time back, being able to control your time, being able to get more of your time, reduce the amount of time that you have to work for money and increase the amount of time that you could be doing the things that you want to do, or even work on the things that you want to at work, which is a common complaint for my clients that they're working 80 hours, but only 5 of those are the kinds of work that they'd really
yeah.
want to be working on. So time freedom is the first kind of freedom. I think the second is career freedom. Career freedom is I can work with the people and on the projects and towards the things that I really want to be working on. I mean, there's nothing more luxurious than being able to say no to money. I don't want to work
Mm,
with you, or this isn't aligned, right?
yeah.
And so many people are in a situation in their life where they're just put up against the grindstone and they have to work at the place that they're working or with the people they're working with, or they have to take that next client. Career freedom means I get to work with the people that I want and do the things that I want to do. So that's the second freedom.
Yeah.
The third freedom is financial freedom. And when you get time career freedom and career freedom, then often it's financial freedom, like being able to say, I've got enough money to stop working if I don't want to. Right. And they, as you can see, they sort of feed into each other a little bit. They build towards each other. So financial freedom is incredible because it allows you to take bigger risks. It
Mm,
allows you to know that every day when you come to work, you're doing this because you choose to do it, not because you have to do it. There's no gun to your head.
right.
It's a fantastic kind of freedom and resilience. And then finally is spiritual freedom. And spiritual freedom just means that I don't think, as important as your career is and as productive and fulfilling as it is to have a career and be part of something, I don't think we were placed on planet Earth just to do work.
Yeah.
Nobody hits their deathbed at 85 and says, "Thank God I made partner of my law firm." What do they talk about? They talk about their kids. They talk about their relationships. They talk about the meaningful things that they did with their life. And they almost never talk about their career when they're on their deathbed, which just gives us a clue that when it's all said and done, this is an important part of our life, but it's not going to be the masthead, the billboard of what was important about life. And so spiritual freedom is the freedom to be able to not have work and making money define the tone and texture of every waking moment of our life. We can actually keep perspective on what's really important about being here on planet Earth.
Yeah, and that's so much of what I talk about with the idea of holistic productivity is we are not just work related beings. There is a personal side to us. There's that purpose that drives us outside of family or work, and being intentional about every area of life is so critical for that happiness and that fulfillment. So I loved hearing that. It aligned very much with what I was what I believe and talk about in this in the podcast and the planner and all the stuff that I do with holistic productivity.
The only thing I would add to that is the weird thing is I often thought that by letting go of being single-mindedly focused on attainment and career success and focusing on a full life balance, that I would be leaving some money on the table or leaving opportunity on the table. Weirdly, what I've seen consistently is that when people get their perspective back and they achieve all or most of the four freedoms, they become more appealing to work with. And these people become more successful. And it's certainly been the case with me that even as I've worked less and less hours and put more and more time into my personal life and my, the essence of who I am and my relationships, it's actually resulted in more success because people want to work with people in life that they are magnetized to, or that they aspire to be like, or that they like being around, and who are living their ethos, who are living their mission. And I spoke with you a little bit before this call. I could tell you're very mission driven, and that's what people love working with. So for people out there who often think that it's a false choice or a zero sum game between, okay, I can either make money and move further away from mission, or I can be mission driven and happy and make no money. I would just say, as much as I can, I'd love to just take a hammer and break that all apart, because it really is ironically the opposite. That the more that you focus on you, the more that you get your life back and live your values, ironically, and I see it consistently, is they actually become more successful in business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the opposite is true. We see people who focus just on their career, they have the relationships crumble, they have no meaning in their life except for that business success. And it's both sides of the coin.
Totally.
Let's talk about winning the week method. This is the main part of what your book focused on. And I love planning. Demir, I got to say, the something that I learned in this book, in reading your book, is that I am a strange person because you talk about how everybody hates planning, but I'm like, what do you mean? Who hates planning? I love it. In fact, sometimes I can plan too much. So talk about the resistance that people have to planning and this step zero, as you call it. Why do so many people hate planning? What's wrong with these people?
Yeah. I'll anchor back into the story as I left it off, right? So my doctors told me I had to go from 80 to 40 hours a week. A lot of people say, okay, well, exactly what did you do? And I often say I went home and had my first real planning session of my life. And the reason I say real is that often what people will do is, if planning is like running the bases in a baseball game, they'll touch on the bases that they enjoy touching on and avoid the ones that they don't. Right. And we'll go through those bases in just a second. But what I was doing is I would create a wish list every week when I was planning. I didn't create a plan. I'd create a wish list, meaning I'd create this. I would look at my calendar, see how much time I had available. I'd create this huge task list of things that I thought I was going to get done. I never married them together to have that accountability moment of, is the luggage going to fit into the suitcase moment, as we call it. And so what happened was I was generating wish lists. Now, over time, because it never worked out, I would always end the week with way more stuff undone than time that I had. I was creating a negative association with planning, which is, okay, let's just be honest. Planning is sitting here on Friday afternoon and taking on all the stress, fear, and anxiety from the next 7 days in one moment. Of course, that moment often for many people doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
When you look at your calendar and realize there's a lot of things due, when you look at your to-do list and realize there's a lot of things coming up, they experience that as high cortisol, stress, fight or flight, anxiety. Some people don't, but most people do. And I was certainly one of those. And then you do it a bunch of times and you don't do it right and you get a bad result. You start to tell yourself, you know what? This is not worth it. I'm not going to take 2 or 3 hours of my weekend to stress myself out, create a plan that, let's be honest, doesn't even work the next week. It really wasn't worth the paper it was printed on.
Yeah.
Why am I going to do this? So I have a ton of empathy for somebody who's like, this doesn't work. So we created the winning the week method to help people round the bases that they really need to round in an authentic and honest way where they can believe like, okay, I've actually touched on the bases that are important in order to have a realistic and winning plan for the week. So you mentioned step 0, which is remove the resistance.
Yeah.
And this is a step that you only need to do once. You never need to do it again. Choose an environment for your planning that is actually comforting.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to do it if you don't look forward to it. So a lot of people try to like white knuckle it, sit at their kitchen table. Their kids are running around, their spouse is asking them questions, and they're going to try to do a weekly planning session. It's not enjoyable, so you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
The reason they make gyms nice is so that you want to go there. There's nice music. It's a nice vibe. It's a nice ambiance.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's just about choosing that cafe or choosing that environment or giving yourself that reward that makes you want to keep coming back to planning. Another thing that removes the resistance is when you know how much time it's going to take. Like it's going to be 30 minutes. Or for monthly planning, it's going to be 60 minutes. That's all I have to do. I can set a clock by it. I'm going to run these bases. At the end, what I've got is what I've got. It's better than nothing. And so you've got this time cap on it that lets you know I'm going to get a good result for the amount of time that I put in. And it can remove that resistance that builds up to even wanting to sit down and plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the first step, learning a lesson from the previous week. That you talk about how that creates that positive feedback loop. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is just 2 minutes, so I don't want to overstress this. It's almost like a warm-up exercise for your planning. Just take 2 minutes. Don't twist yourself in a pretzel. Look back on last week and say, what went wrong that I should probably learn from and not do again? And the classic example is, last week, did you say yes to something that you, in retrospect, probably should have said no to? Have you done that the week before and the week before that? Maybe you have a saying yes problem. Maybe we should learn a lesson here and think about next week. Let's try to find opportunities to say a kind no and learn that lesson from not just the week, but not just last week, but all the previous weeks. And there's also things that went right. Like, what did I actually do really well? Okay, I think the way I slotted my time into my calendar was pretty good, and my energy was really on point. So let's learn that lesson and make sure that we keep doing that. So if we just take 2 minutes and pick one thing that went wrong, learn a lesson from it, take one thing that went right, what's happening is we're creating a learning loop where we're just getting better a little bit, 1% every week, but it's 1% that compounds.
Right. Yeah, that feedback is so important. If you don't look at what you've done wrong or what you've done right, how are you going to repeat the good things and not repeat the bad things? I love that step. You go on from there to talk about leveraged priorities. How are those different from other priorities? Talk about that.
Yeah, this is the classic Jay Papasan, Gary Keller, One Thing, or the book Essentialism, if you prefer. It's just such an incredible development in productivity, this idea of leverage. And leverage is simply, instead of saying, I have to get it all done, flip the question on its head and say, what can I do this week that makes next week easier and the week after easier and next month easier? And in a theoretical world, if every single week for the next 52 weeks, you made your life and your workflow 1% easier permanently, what would that look like? I mean, your life would just get easier and easier and easier. So what I challenge people to do is not just pick the thing that feels like it's the hairiest and scariest and that's blowing up, because often that's something that has to be done, but it's not leveraged. And I challenge them to do one thing every week that will permanently make the next week or the next month or next year easier. Because again, you have this compounding effect where within a month, within 6 months, you start to notice, wow, what is happening here? Life is just getting easier and easier. And it's because every week you're passing the baton to yourself and just making 1% better improvements to your workflow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful when you can do that. And you're right. We think about these priorities usually as the thing that is most urgent. The coworker or the boss is screaming about the loudest or has the most current deadline that's coming up around the corner. But often the best use of time is working on something far in advance that is going to make a difference down the road. Is that your experience as well?
Yes, 100%. But also, even if you're completely up against it, take the thing you're working on and slap on an extra 15 or 30 minutes and do it such that the next time you come around to work on it, it's
Yeah.
1% easier to do that thing. You
Yeah.
doing your taxes this year? Great. Make yourself a checklist for next year's taxes so the
Yes.
taxes next year are just a little bit easier to do. So I always say there's no situation you could be in where you couldn't apply a little bit of extra leverage to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea of let's invest a little bit of time today to make tomorrow easier. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So the next step in the winning the week method is interrogating your calendar. And you use some pretty strong language there. Interrogating, that sounds intense. But tell me about
Yeah.
the process. And I love the order that you go through and prioritize things because that feels very backwards when you first think about it, but I love the order that you put it in.
Well, so we split calendar review into two. The first step of interrogating your calendar, you have to think about your calendar as like a witness on the witness stand who
Mm,
will tell the truth under oath, but would gladly hide it as well. So your calendar is sort of like a sneaky little deceptive liar. And what do I mean by that? Everybody knows the experience of looking at your calendar on Monday and saying, looks good to me. Looks fine. Looks like
yeah,
there's plenty of time. And then you go into your calendar, you realize, oh, on Tuesday, I was supposed to drive my kid to a volleyball game and I forgot to put it on my calendar. Landmine, explosion.
yeah,
On Wednesday, I got double booked because I wasn't paying attention to my calendar and I'm actually supposed to be in 2 meetings right now. And now both people are mad at me. Landmine. And when you're paying this, Dave Ramsey calls it the stupid tax. So you end up paying the stupid tax all over your calendar. Why? Because you could have interrogated your calendar and you reasonably could have known. And all you needed to do was sweat your calendar a little bit more. So if
yeah,
you, instead of looking at your calendar and saying, looks good, assuming it's telling you the truth, I flip it and I say, you've got to interrogate your calendar, assume it's sort of lying to you. You got to sweat out the truth from it. And at this point, you're not putting anything on the calendar. You're just making sure what should not be on the calendar, but is.
mm,
Get it off of there. What
yeah,
should be on the calendar, but isn't. Get it on, right? How much
yeah,
flex time do I need to deal with emergencies this week? Can I arrange things more optimally? When am I going to get that leverage priority done? Are there landmines in the calendar? Let me mark them off so I can make sure I don't screw something up this week, right? Did my calendar review unearth some hidden tasks? So you're just asking some basic questions that benefit anybody. And when you do that, all of a sudden you look at your calendar, you say, oh, wow, I found 3 or 4 things that really would have blown me up this week and cost me a lot of cognitive load and stress and anxiety. And guess what? I'm not going to pay that stupid tax this week.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are some of the landmines, the biggest calendar landmines that you still encounter, and how do you neutralize those?
Well, I've got kids. So having
Yeah,
kids and operating a household is
yeah,
just a factory of
yeah,
landmines. Now, I want to be clear. I want to divide real emergencies from fake emergencies. If my
mm,
kid breaks their arm, that's a real emergency. It could
right,
not have been foreseen. There's no way you could have put it on your calendar. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I committed to be somewhere at a certain time and I forgot to put it on my calendar like an idiot.
yeah,
That's something that's like that's a fake emergency. It hits me in the moment like an emergency, but it wasn't. It was actually negligence on my part, not
right,
clearly marking it on my calendar. So in step 3, I want you to think about this as just getting a very clear sense of your time supply. Like if you sell Chris, if your
mm,
product in the market is Chris, that product has inventory. It's the 168 hours that you have each week. And you can't sell all 168 hours of that. You can only sell about 40 of it. So you need to look at that 40 and minus out the liabilities that are already called for from that.
mm,
So in this step, we're just trying to get a sense in the business of being Chris, how much inventory can we sell this week? So that's step 3. Let's get clear on our sellable supply and availability inventory of time. Then step 4 is about what's our liabilities, right? What's already called for. And so when you
Yeah.
look at your task list, you can really think about it as these are demands that I've already promised but haven't fulfilled on, right? So these are time demands. These are time liabilities. And these are liabilities that could come from me. I've told myself I need to do something, or somebody else can tell me that they want me to do it. And so what we're going to do is almost like a triage doctor on a battlefield. We're going to go through and we're going to say, I'm not going to be able to get all this done. What is the most optimal allotment of those time liabilities into my time supply? So the first thing we're going to do is take a pass through our task list, just cut off all the stuff that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Either it doesn't belong because we shouldn't have put it on our task list in the first place. We all know that thing that felt important at 3 a.m. in the morning to put on our task list. And you just realize the next day, why did I even put that on there? There's no sense in that being on there. Get it off. Or also, this isn't a this week thing. It's a next week thing. It might even be a next month thing. I shouldn't be wasting brain cells considering it for this week. So that's what we're going to do in step 4. Is just take a run through that task list real quick and really take a spring cleaning on that task list and make sure we're only considering the things that are important or leveraged for this week. So now what do you have? You have a really clear sense of your time supply. You've got a really clear sense of your time demands. Final step, the hardest one. Now we got to marry them together in step 5 and calendarize. Remember when I said I used to have a wish list, not a plan?
Right.
Step 5 is where Pinocchio becomes a real boy. Most people do all their planning and they never do this final step. So what they have in the end is a wish list and not a plan.
Yeah.
It's not a plan until you put it in the calendar. And here's why. Simple analogy. You can lay everything out in your bed and say, okay, I think this will all fit into my luggage for this upcoming trip. But you don't know for sure if it's going to fit until you do what? You got to pack it in there.
In the suitcase.
And that's the truth moment. The truth moment is let's do a sample packing and let's try to zip up that luggage because everybody knows the feeling of like, it looked like it would fit when it was sitting on the bed. But now that I'm packing it in, that zipper just won't zip. So step 5 is where you, as a little test for yourself, you pack it all into the calendar. Not because it's exactly going to happen that way, not because exactly at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, you're going to do the thing you said, but simply because you're doing a trial run of will it all fit into the hours that I have available for this week?
Yeah.
And that's how we do it. So we have a specific step that we put things in. Number 1, and this is quite counterintuitive, we say put the good stuff in first.
Yeah.
The good stuff in your life, like the self-care and the exercise and the playtime with your kids and the date nights. Why? Because if you leave that for less, it will never, ever get put in.
Yeah.
If you leave exercise for the very last, I can promise you, it's not going to make the cut. So we say put the good stuff in first because we will find a way to make space for all of that other stuff. But it's a one-way street. You put the good stuff in first, we'll find a place for the work. If you put all the work in first, I promise you the personal stuff won't make it.
Right. No, and I love that. It's kind of that big rocks analogy, but it's very, like you said, counterintuitive. And like we've been talking about, at the end of your life, those are the things that matter. The memories with your kids, the time with your wife or your spouse, your partner, all of that stuff matters. And so you put that in first. I love that. And it is very counterintuitive, but I think a fantastic way to do it. So what goes in next after that?
So first, put in the good stuff. Second, schedule in your deep work time for that leveraged priority that you had for the week. It's not enough to just say, oh, I'm going to do this thing. When? Make an allocation of time, right? Our calendar reflects our values. If you say you're going to get deep work done, you need to make an allocation of time with which to do it. Step 3, put in some flex time. This is the classic rookie move that I've made and everybody else makes. When I do time trackers for my clients, we have a category called UUW. It stands for unplanned, unwanted work. It's the surprise work. It's the last minute emergencies. I've never had a client where that was 0. Most of the time, it's 5 to 10 hours a week of just work that you could not have known was going to appear, but appears on your plate and you have to make time to get it done. So why don't we make an allocation of time as a placeholder for that? We don't because we're, again, magical thinking, just hoping, even though 52 weeks out of last year, I had some UUW work every single week. This week, I'm magically hoping that it won't happen. Let's not magically hope. Let's just make it a plug, an allocation, 4 hours, 5 hours, just an hour a day of time to say, hey, something's going to appear in my day. Let me make a set aside allocation of time with which to tackle that thing so that, because if you don't do it, flip it around. You fill your week up, you've got no flex time. One
Yeah.
bad thing happens on Monday and it's like a domino fall where the
Yep.
rest of the house of the cards just tumbles, right? And then I'll
Snowballs.
just really quickly run through step 4 and step 5. We stuff the shallow work into the cracks and then we keep going, right? Meaning just iterate through it. It becomes cyclical where once you get to the end of version 1, you've learned a bunch, you go back and maybe just lightly reconsider, how does that change my leverage priority for the week? Do I have time for that? Do I need to cut it down a little bit? Do I need to realign some of my time liabilities and my time supply to make them match better? So yes, I sort of present it as a linear flow, but the truth is you go through it once and then you almost go back to the beginning quickly and sort of mentally cycle through it. What you're doing is you're trying to get the puzzle pieces to fit. Or a better analogy, Chris, is do you remember Tetris? Where
Oh, yeah.
the name of the game was to fit as many of the blocks as tightly as possibly as you could. That's really what we're doing here. We're making an initial stack of these puzzle pieces, but give yourself permission when you get it to sort of be like, I think I could do this a little bit better, and just jiggle it a little bit to make it fit a little bit better.
Yeah. So we have this great plan now, and we've mapped it all out, but it hasn't come to reality until we actually do it. And that may be the hardest part because we actually have to follow the plan that we've made. And you talk a lot about accountability in that vein. Why is that so critical? And what are some of the ways that we can hold ourselves accountable? What are the different types of accountability that we have and that are important for our success?
Yeah, I mean, I suffered for so many years under the impression that I needed to be the isolated genius,
Mm,
that I was just supposed to do it all alone, and that if I couldn't do it alone, there was something wrong with me. Like I said, I used to be 260 pounds. I'm weighing in right now at 165,
mm,
and it's 10 years later. So I've been keeping that weight off. How did I do it? I got a trainer. And I have workout buddies, right? So I became part of a community. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh man, but I don't want to have accountability in my life. I want to be able to just do it all alone.
yeah.
And the truth is that we're social creatures. There's such a thing as people power. You become a part of a group of people who work out, you're more likely to work out. You become a group of people that have a certain value, you're more likely to share that value. So you stack the deck in your favor when you put social positive pressure. I'm not going to say negative pressure, but positive social pressure on your side and accountability. And so I don't care what form that comes in. We pay for FocusMate for all of our clients so that they can have 24/7 accountability anywhere in the world. We have live win the day, win the week, win the month, win the quarter sessions where instead of just telling people you should plan, we actually do it with you side by side, shoulder to shoulder, so that you can leverage that people power.
Yeah.
And we make it like a rave with like fun music. And there's a million other variants out there. But the idea is plug into people power, plug into accountability, and you're just going to see how much easier it is to do something that's inconvenient. It's not hard to plan. And let's be honest, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a 2 or a 3. But I get it that when you're asking yourself to do it consistently, 52 out of 52 weeks out of the year, it does help to have that support and accountability in whatever flavor or form you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's more fun that way. I mean, I love that you guys are doing it in a fun way because slogging through something that's difficult or challenging by myself, yeah, maybe I can do it. But if somebody is there by my side, laughing about the trips and the falls, right, the challenges that come up, that is so much better. I really do love that. Yeah,
Have you checked out a Peloton? You know, that biking app,
yeah,
Peloton? Who's going to really challenge themselves and push themselves to the highest level on an exercise bike in their living room? But
yeah,
you turn on that screen and there's a fun, attractive, excited trainer on the other side, and it's live, and you can see the scores of everybody else, and they're calling out your name. And all of a sudden you're pushing yourself harder than you thought that you would. And you think, oh my God, this really works. So that's our model, is really Peloton for productivity, because we want people to get on every morning, every week, and hear that call out and get that excitement and hear that music and have somebody saying, you're doing it great. Just keep going. You're almost there. Right.
yeah. I love that. I've started running in the last year, and my time during a race is always so much better than a training run because of that community around me.
Yeah.
And I can see somebody, I'm like, oh, I can definitely beat them, so I'm trying a little bit harder, or I'm not going to let that person beat me, or it's just whatever it is, we come together, and it's so much more fun than a training run by myself.
Yeah, it's like people power, man. And the weirdest thing is how it can transform something that you would do anything not to do into
Yeah.
something that you can't wait to do. And
Yeah.
it's like, how many of those things in your life can you turn from things that are exhausting your willpower and you're totally avoiding into things that you're like, can't wait to get started. I'll take as many of those trades as I possibly can in my life.
Yeah. No, again, I love the book. We're going to put a link in the show notes for that, and just hope everybody goes and reads that. It's very good stuff. It's a very simple process, has a lot of impact, and I know you have resources that help people with that. So we'll put all of those links in the show notes. I want to ask a question though now, kind of moving away from the book. Everything is focused on artificial intelligence right now. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts on AI and the future of business and productivity over the next few years with AI in the picture now. What does that look like in your view?
High level, I would say it's a bucket full of gold mixed with fool's gold. And
Mm,
our job is to, when I say our job, I want to be clear. Me and you, Chris, people who
yeah.
work as productivity professionals, people look to us as their Sherpa
Mm,
to say, hey, I don't have the time that you guys have to get out there and evaluate the next book, the next app, the next technology. That's your job. You get out there, you figure out what's gold versus fool's gold so that I don't have to do that on my own behalf. So I've been out there in AI, sort of parsing out like, what is AI ready for right now? What does it really kick rear end doing right now?
yeah.
And what are the things where it's more hype than actual value? A good example, since we're talking about winning the week, I created like a half-page prompt that effectively turns your ChatGPT into your personalized winning the week guide or Sherpa and
Mm,
takes you through the winning the week process. But instead of just taking you through, it actually, based on what it knows about you through your previous ChatGPT history, will take educated guesses about what your priority for the week will be. Or you could drop in your calendar, it'll do a calendar analysis for you. Or you can drop in, one of the coolest parts of it is you drop in your task list and it'll do an Eisenhower matrix for you based on what priorities that you set. So it's actually a really good, on the gold column, planning your weeks, planning your months, planning your quarters is a great use case with AI if you give it the right framework. On
right.
the fool's gold side, agents just aren't there yet. There's
Mm,
so much hype about agents. And what somebody will do, Elon Musk often says there's a big difference between creating a prototype and creating a production line
mm,
on a particular thing. And I would say there's a huge difference in AI from somebody creating something with AI agents and getting it to work once in a demo and filming that and saying, look at what my agent did,
yeah.
versus putting that in your business or your life and getting it to fire off and function every single time. I've just seen consistently that agents just really aren't ready for the big time yet. So, TLDR, there is a huge bucket of things where I cannot be more aggressive to my clients about saying you need to be using this right now with AI. And there
Yeah.
is an equally huge bucket where I say, leave it, leave
Yeah.
it. Don't get into this yet because it's not ready for the big time. And I'm happy to get into like which ones I think belong in which bucket. But generally speaking, I think it helps people not to be binary in their approach to AI. Because a lot of people are like, it's either all
Yeah.
valuable or none of it's valuable. And
Right.
unfortunately, it's very gray area. There are some things that are ready for the big time and some things that just aren't.
Yeah, I definitely talk with people who say, "Oh, I'm not touching that." Some people are even saying, "Oh, it's bad, it's evil," all, and it may be, but there are good things about it. And I think you're right. We need to figure out what those are and try to help others. But I don't think we also want to just stay away from it altogether, nor do we want to dive in full on and just throw everything in our life into artificial intelligence. There has to be that balance somewhere.
Unfortunately, I think that some people assume a level of responsibility at a personal level that may not be granted to them. Here's what I mean.
Mm,
If you're a country and you've got an opposing country, maybe an enemy that borders you, and they get tanks. You sort of have to get tanks.
Yeah.
Even if you don't really want to get tanks. And if they get missiles, you sort of got to get missiles, right? And so for a lot of us, a lot of people will say, hey, I might have a problem with AI or concerns with AI, but I know that their responsibility to their family and their desire to keep their income going probably outweighs the concerns that they have. What they may not be seeing is, hey, how is AI affecting my industry? And am I in a place where it's even an option for me to say, no, I'm not going to get involved with this? Because for a lot of my clients, when we play out the scenario and I say, you're a copywriter, there are copywriters now who are going to be 10xing the amount of quantity that they can sell to their clients for the same amount of price. How many years do you think you can stay in business in that kind of competitive environment? For that person, in a weird way, it's like, just accept that it's not a choice that you can even make. To stay, the real choice is, do I shut down my business because I'm that concerned about AI? Or do I just sort of say, okay, well, unfortunately, it's not the choice that I would have wanted to make. I would have preferred to go slower here in progressing into AI, but it's moving fast. And for me to stay in business, I have to lean into it and embrace it on some level, still bringing my ethos, still bringing my values, still trying to make the best choices that I can make for myself and my privacy and my clients. But there's a point at which it's like, why stress about something that you don't have as much choice as you think you have in? And I know that sounds a little bit like dramatic, but I have a lot of clients spending a lot of their personal energy stressing about something that when I talk them through, they just sort of say, oh yeah, the choice is really, do I want to get out of this industry or do I want to embrace AI? I don't want to get out of the industry. So why am I sweating it? Like, okay, well, let me get into AI and just try to proceed into it with as much ethos and values as I could possibly bring into it.
Yeah, absolutely. With all of the thousands of clients that you've worked with, what is one myth about productivity that you find yourself constantly sort of busting and having to break down in the minds of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I lived this, so I have so much empathy for this. I used to think that the world existed on an X axis. You could either be happy and poor, so you could be happy and healthy and poor, or you could be stressed and anxious and unhealthy and rich. And that was and every step you took towards being successful or rich, you were accepting that you were going to be less happy and less healthy and less fulfilled in life, and vice versa. And that was a trap for me because it prevented me from seeing all of the ways in which I could be operating with leverage and actually working fewer hours and making more meaning in my life and reaching more people and expanding my reach. And yes, making a lot more money and working fewer hours. I still work less than 30 hours a week on average throughout the entire year. And so I think a lot of people would say, I'd take Demir's life. I'd take a multi-7-figure business, working from home, hanging out with your kids and working together with your wife and making multi-7 figures. That sounds good for me. I'm not saying that's available for everybody, but I'm saying I never would have even stumbled into this path if I wasn't able to break down that myth of life exists on this axis. You have to open yourself up to the idea with leverage. Hey, is there just a better place for me to be in terms of a career? Is there a better job or career path that I could have? Is there a better team that I could be on? Is there a way that I can operate with more leverage? You need to break down that box of, it's always going to require more and more work for me to be more fulfilled or more happy. Because ironically, it's actually quite the opposite. The more you overwork yourself, the more you keep reaching for the brass ring simply by putting out raw output, the more likely that you're going to burn out before you actually get there. And you're just going to be unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Demir. This has been fantastic. Loved the conversation. I end every episode with what I call the questions. These were inspired by James Lipton. He was host of Inside the Actors Studio. So we're just going to run through these. Hope you're ready. But question number one, what motivates you?
Yeah, I love transformation. Obviously, anybody in coaching loves transformation, but the word is so generic. I mean, specifically, I love clients coming in and you can see bags under their eyes and they're just hating their life, and then seeing them just 2 months later with a smile on their face. And they thought it was going to take them years to dig themselves out of the hole, and it took just like a couple of months. I mean, I live for that feeling.
What discourages you?
I mean, the opposite. I hate to see people wasting their life. I hate to see people working harder than they need to. I hate to see people feeling hopeless.
One word that describes you at your best.
Free. My key value is freedom. So I'm my best when I feel free.
One word that describes you at your worst.
Distracted. Just a mess of distraction.
Yeah.
With my ADHD brain, it is not hard to distract me. And when I get distracted, I'm not the best version of myself.
Other than family or work, what gives you purpose?
This is not going to be a popular answer. I love being lazy. Like, I actually see a lot of utility in, what people call lazy is often just sweetly drinking from the goblet of life. I love to sit on my couch and listen to an album. So like once I've done what I need to do for work and for family, I'm a kickback guy. I like to just drink the goblet of some hardcore laziness. There's no sweeter drink for me.
Well, what guilty pleasure brings you joy?
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's nothing like sunny afternoon, headphones on, great album, and just listen to a whole album and just let my mind wander.
How do you celebrate a win?
I'm a big psychological guy. I need acknowledgement, and I often crave it from my wife. She's like my other half. So a solid high five, and not just the high five, but like I want to see in her face that she sees. I want to get that acknowledged from her. Like, you crushed it. Like, that's a really important thing for me. It's not the high five. It's more symbolically like somebody you respect mirroring back to you that it was a win, so you can really receive it psychologically for yourself.
How do you bounce back after a loss?
I'm big into stoicism, so postmortem. It's only a loss if you don't collect the learnings from it. So for me, the bigger the loss, the bigger the analysis. Like, okay, great, big learning here. Then clearly, I did not see the world the way I thought it was. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Who was the last person you expressed gratitude towards?
My wife and I have a regular gratitude practice. We work the Gottman method in our marriage. And so a big part of that is not just expressing gratitude in general, but staying in gratitude towards your spouse or other half. So every day we have sort of a, what are we grateful for in each other practice.
Love it. And if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Yeah, man, I love the journey, even for all of its weird twists and turns. So I'd probably just be the generic guy that would say, hey, man, I don't want to tell you anything because I don't want to change it, but it's all going to work out great.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I had my 80-year-old version pop up today in a time machine and say those words to me, I think I'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, don't worry. It's all going to work out. It's going to be great. Enjoy the ride. That would just set me back into like, oh, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, Demir, again, thank you so much for being here. Please go to the show notes. We're gonna that is at wholisticproductivity.com. We will put a whole bunch of links for how you can connect with Demir, learn about winning the week method, and all of the things that he and Carrie have to offer. Just so thank you for being here. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, man.
All right. And thank you for being here as well. Check out the show notes, like I said, wholisticproductivity.com, and make sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. You can watch the show there. You want to get the next episode when it drops every single Tuesday. Don't want to miss that. So we'll have another great episode for you as well. If you liked the show, if you enjoyed hearing from Demir and other guests, if you found this valuable, you'd like to rate the show, we'd love to see 5 stars. That just lets other people know that the show is worth listening to and they can get value from it as well. Follow at Wholistic Productivity on all of the social media platforms: LinkedIn, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Substack. A lot of great productivity tips and motivation there. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, join the Holistic Productivity group on School, and we can have that accountability that Demir talked about every single day, listening to other people and their goal journey and helping you on yours as well. Thank you so much for listening in. As always, my goal with this show is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.